right, it's 4 hours to the election day and about 12 hours to commencement of voting in the 2023 general election in Africa's most populous country. Welcome to Decision 2023, the TVC News Election Studio, where we give you updates and blow-by-blow analysis of the events shaping the conduct of the polls. And thanks for joining us on the program. I am Mike Okwoche. After much wait and anticipation, the general election is upon us. Critical players in the conduct of the polls, from political parties and their candidates, the electoral umpire, the electorate, the security agencies, election observers, and the media, and more, are here to give us a successful outcome in the country. All right, let's begin from the very first issue. Will the election hold as scheduled by the Independent National Electoral Commission or be postponed as rumored in many quarters? Was the big issue initially. But those in charge, like the president and the INEC chairman, insisted that nothing will shift the election. And let's refresh your memory with some of these assurances given by those concerned.
The expectations place a great responsibility on the election management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission. We are not taking these responsibilities lightly. We appreciate that there are challenges and concerns, but we also realize that there is enormous goodwill and support, both in Nigeria and beyond. Consequently, we believe that by forthrightly sharing our experiences and discussing the challenges openly, we can surmount the challenges and ensure that our elections in Nigeria continue to get better. May I, on this note, once again reiterate our position that the Commission is not contemplating, let alone planning, to postpone the 2023 general election. We are going ahead to conduct the election as scheduled.
The 2023 elections will be held as planned. Nothing has happened to change that position. We are aware that INEC is working with the security agencies to ensure that the elections are successfully held across the country.
All right, you got the assurances there on whether the election will hold, but time after time, those who are concerned gave the assurances that the election will hold. And we're looking forward to that just in a few hours from now. All Nigerians are looking forward to this day, and the whole of Africa and around the world are also watching to see what will come out and how Nigerians will troop out to vote for their candidates or who will become the #1 citizen of Nigeria in the next 4 years. All right, I have my first guests in the studio. We'll be discussing and talking about what the election is like. I have with me Professor Anthony Killer, strategy and development expert, with me here in the studio. Professor, it's good to see you this evening.
Good to be here.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yes.
Great. Now, let me start this way. Elections are one of the very visible features of democracy. And if you look at all the elections from independence up until now, how would you rate the depth of our democratic maturity?
Well, I think, let me start by saying two things. Number one is that I appreciate the adjective you use. The most visible part of the democratic process. Yes, that is, it's symbolic and it's visible and it's very important because that is one time when citizens sign the mandate to say, you go and govern, because based on what you've told us, based on the way we look at you, based on what we know about you, we think you should be in charge of the Commonwealth. So that is a very high moment, you know. It's almost a ritual. So I'm glad you say that. But I'm glad you call it visible, because there are other sides of it which are not visible, which are equally important. And, you know, starting from voters understanding their duties, getting their voters card and participating in it, and where possible, scrutinizing candidates so that we're not carried away by emotions, propagandas, and manipulations, but we're guided by facts, because governing a country is not a matter of propaganda. It's not a matter of I think, I feel. You can say that, you know, the famous poetry before the elections, then after that, the prose of governance. But when you get there, it's a very complex, tedious, and consuming process.
Especially for a country like Nigeria.
Yes, all over the world. But Nigeria, you know, has its own issues as well, all over the world. So how far so far? Well, I think there is marginal improvement. Okay. I think you asked a question in your intro, you know, number one question, will elections hold? I really appreciate the fact that INEC and all those authorities have come out to say, come rain or shine, elections will hold as planned. That is what institution is about. Election is like Christmas Day. It's a fixed day. You know, it's not something you say, should we change it or not? Anytime we postpone something like election, it's a failure. And I hope INEC and others will not disappoint me, because now I'm giving them thumbs up. The first step, you know, the whole essence of institution, you and I can have problems. You know, actually, broadcasters are better than most of us in the world, because you don't come to say, I'm late, so the news will start late. You know, individuals can have stories. Artisans and doctors and everybody can have stories why they're late. But institutions should not have stories. Why? Because the whole essence of INEC, that big institution, is to conduct election. Every year, they have a minimum of 4 years to prepare for it. Every year, or every 4 years, the Inspector General of Police, even if it's not the new one, even if they bring one there tomorrow, he has been part of the process for 4 years, because they don't bring an outsider to be part. So everybody is aware of that date, and everybody should be able to deliver. It must be said that if for any reason in the world elections are postponed, it's a failure on those that manage an institution. It's their inability to manage variables, which day after day they should be limiting to say, what are the possible scenarios? What are the things that might make election not hold? And I think those statements are good statements. The other good statement, you know, well, the other good action is when we saw the president come out symbolically to prepare a transition team. That's a message to the world to say, I am going. You know, elections are going to hold, and I'm going to go away. That's, I think that's a good thing. So to that extent, we've been reassured. The ball is now in our court as citizens and candidates to make sure we respect that, as you defined it, the most visible, important part of the electoral process.
Exactly. Yes. Now, I wonder what you see in the air when you gauge all the feelings and the build-up to the election. You know, some people are scared, some are very enthusiastic, anxiety, uncertainty. I wonder what you see in the build-up to the election tomorrow.
Well, I see the usual thing when elections come in. I see propaganda, I see people trying to control other people's narrative. I am one of the few people who have always saying that, you know, this election is just an election. It's not the end of the world. The idea that, oh, this is a defining moment in Nigeria, it's just defining for people who are going to get elected. How many are they? They're about 300, less than 350 people. The calculation is very simple. 109 senators, about 34 governors and a deputy, a president and a vice president, and members of the House of Assembly. I would like Nigerians to take voting serious, but not to imagine that this voting thing is the end of the world. It's neither the beginning nor the end of the world. We, the people, over 94 million of us, are called to thumbprint which one of the over 350 will retain their job or get a new job. I think if we can limit it to that, nobody will die. If we can limit it to that, nobody will be afraid. You know, it's not... Politicians are very good in the process of making their business our business. Just because they want to get elected doesn't mean the whole world should stop for them. And there goes to the process so far. I still believe that it's a shame that because we want to vote, we have to shut down the country. That's still, it's still a stain on our, if you want, civility as a people. Because it's not necessary to shut down the country just because we want to vote. The fact that we want to do that shows, one, that we don't trust ourselves, shows that the democratic system is still fragile. But guess what? It also shows that some of the people we're electing are criminals.
How is that?
And I take this responsibility because, you see, the idea that we're afraid that some people are going to hire thugs, some people are going to steal votes, we should really think about it. Should we not reconsider our attitude towards these people we're electing? If we do not trust them, if the amount of police officers, I was listening to Bonu, Bonu states have deployed over 13,000 security
agents.
That's about more than they deployed for terrorism. We're not at war, we're just voting. Somehow, and this is not a blame game, it's a suggestion. Moving forward, perhaps after March, after all this voting is done, we need to get together as a people and start thinking, how do we go to a normal, how do we become a normal country where election is not war, where election should not require closing down, sending police and soldiers to the street, and everything seems like a war. No, it's not. Look, I have this vision, this dream in Nigeria where election day will be a day where if you have time, you go to vote. It will be a day to get to know your neighbors. Everybody's going calmly. When you have time, if you have to go. And there's no need to push anybody around. It should be you seeing people you know and voting and saying, hello. That is part one. I have an even bigger idea that one day we can actually vote from our computer.
Oh, yeah. Everyone look forward to that.
So there's no need. We need to find a way to simplify this. But the way to do it is to think of two things. One is comfort, convenience, and safety of citizens, respect for citizens. Number two is to continue to know that amongst the people going in for office, some of them are cheats. Because if they were not cheats, there would be no need. If everybody was a gentleman and lady, if there were gentlemen and ladies where winners win, losers move forward, knowing that nothing personal, I just have a different idea from you, shake hands and move on, and we will save a lot of money. We also need to think about the cost of election in Nigeria is 4 times the cost of election in most Western countries. India, and nobody should tell me about the population. India has a bigger population than Nigeria. We spend more money on election than them. Well, you see, this kind of thing, and that is the cost of trust. That is the cost of strong institution, and that is the strong of culture.
All right, let me bring in the former Electoral Commissioner to join us now, Mike Igini, joining us on Zoom. Mike, good evening. It's good to have you join us right now.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Prof. For his views.
Great.
Our effort to give meaning and purpose to the ballot.
Wonderful. So on a day like this, just few hours to election day, I know that a lot of Nigerians have so much on their minds. Everyone, in fact, some people will not sleep tonight. A lot of people will not sleep tonight. Some are scared, some are enthusiastic, some are happy. So, the passion, you can feel it. But talk to me from your analysis. How ready are we for this election on the side of the electorate, as well as the umpire, as well as all the institutions involved?
Well, thank you very much. I think that tomorrow we're talking about a few hours to the election. The preparations for this election from the point of view of the commission, which I was part of, please be noted, I'm no longer in the commission, had been ongoing because the end of one electoral cycle commences another. So the preparation for this exercise, tomorrow's election and a March have actually been ongoing. I think where we are now is a question of dotting the I's and crossing the T's in terms of implementation, because good elections, or rather good laws, innovations that have been put in place are not self-executory. They require people to get them implemented. But far more important to further expound on what our friend there has proffered said, the fact that where we are, our battle cry is a clarion call for the people of this country to come out in numbers tomorrow to show our character, that indeed all that we have been saying, that we want to sing a new song, we'll be able to do that tomorrow, because election is the moment to renew the journey of any country in a democracy on a periodic basis. Like he said, election around the world is a period we should look up to. It's like a festive period, a period where we renew the journey of the country in terms of the individuals who must give account of the exercise of power within a period, and in terms of policies and programs, whether going forward we need to expand or do away with some of those policies. And that's the beauty of election. Again, election we're going to have tomorrow is of a different class. This is what we call direct democracy. This is not delegate election where politicians will sew uniform. For delegates, lock them up in some hotels, give them uniform to wear like prisoners. They cannot be spoken to. Nobody can engage them. Then on the day of primaries, they are all driven, well guided, as instructed, to go and make a choice after they have been thoroughly bribed. Thoroughly they have been bribed with dollars. That is not the kind of thing we are going to see tomorrow. Tomorrow election is what we call a general direct election, direct democracy, where the Nigerian people will now exercise their residual sovereignty, having given part of their sovereignty in the last election, to now decide by way of to hire and to fire who should be involved. And the beauty of tomorrow's election is that nobody is going to go to INEC office tomorrow to take any instruction from anybody. Nobody is going to go to political party office tomorrow to take any instruction from anybody. Even those who have been given money and all of that, they will all go to the Pune unit tomorrow as free citizens, because all roads lead to the entire 176,606 Pune units that we have across the country. Tomorrow's election, we must be careful that the decision we are going to make will also have consequences. One of the greatest responsibilities of a citizen in a democracy is to come out after 4 years to do what is expected of him or her, to do if we have attained the voting age. So tomorrow, INEC preparation has been ongoing. With respect to security, because where we are, we have the laws, we have new innovations that we will talk about the course of this program to bring meaning and purpose to the ballot as the best means of the expression of the will of the people in a democracy. But what is required from this hour down to tomorrow is the necessary secured ambience, environment that Nigeria will be able to speak to. And that's why I'm very delighted that way back in October, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I was one of the resource persons. If I delivered 2 papers on security for this election, organized by the Inspector General of Police, who, my prayer is that what he had done, which was a different class in terms of election security, with 5 elections since he came on board.
All right, Mike.
To be replicated tomorrow.
Yes.
So, to land on that point, and that is that the president has charged security agencies to be neutral, to be apolitical, to be firm, to ensure that this election will more reflect the will of the people. And the system we have in place have now put the voters at the center and put the candidate at the periphery.
All right.
That happens as well.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to come back to you shortly, but let's cross over to Yola in Adamawa State, where our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zugbaku is there to bring us up to speed with what the temperature there right now. Ayo, it's good to have you join us this evening. What's the temperature, political temperature in Yola?
Thank you, Mike. We are counting down to the 2023 presidential election, and this is the day that a lot of Nigerians have been waiting for, and they're anticipating that by this time tomorrow, all would have been done and dusted. But more interesting thing is, in terms of preparation, Mike, in terms of preparation here, Mike, a lot of these paramilitary organizations and something I want to refer to in the Southwest, like the People Congress, some organization.
All right. We'll certainly bring Ayo back by the time we get the audio right in there from Yola, our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zugbaku, joining us from there. Now, Professor, the point is, when you mentioned voter understanding earlier on.
Yes.
When it comes to the Nigerian voter,
Yes.
we've seen in many instances where people, even on the day of voting, the time they are going to vote, they're still being told how to do this one, how to, and how to, all of the how-tos and all of that. How sophisticated or not is the average Nigerian voter, if I have to put it that way?
Well, you say this and you make me say something unpopular, but it's my position because I've written about it. And I think we need to keep saying it. If we want democracy to work, we need to understand that we have to review a lot of things.
Okay.
One of the things we have to review is to ask ourselves if universal adult suffrage is not an error in Nigeria.
Whoa.
Yes, I know this is unpopular, but we need to think about it. You see, the point is, how
Professor,
can
you're challenging our brains and our minds this
well,
evening.
we have to. I know people don't like to hear it because people want everybody to vote. They keep saying everybody should vote. But really, should everybody be voting? Now, if people are so ignorant, so hungry, should they be part of the process of deciding who is going to take charge and decide fiscal policies, monetary policies, diplomatic issues, environmental issues, urban issues, agricultural issues? A lot of people don't know. They can't make this decision. I think we have made an error. We have tied voting to citizenry. We've entered into this false narrative of thinking that I vote, therefore I am. Which is not true, which is not necessary.
It's called a civic duty.
Yeah,
it's called a duty.
Very good. It's a duty. I agree with you.
Okay.
Now, if it's a duty, for you to observe a duty, you need some kind of verifiable qualification to observe that duty. I argue that the voter's card should be treated like a driver's license. You should prove that you can drive before we give you a car.
Wow.
There are too many people voting who have no business with voting. They shouldn't be voting. I argue that people should show some minimal understanding of civics, and better still, let them show they're taxpayers. But go ahead.
Wow. Professor, this is a huge challenge,
Yes.
but we'll come back to talk about this. I think our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zugbaku, is back on right now. Ayo, I asked you earlier how the political temperature in Yola is right now. You were giving us some points before your audio went off. Go ahead now.
Okay, we're talking about paramilitary organizations, that the security outfits that are not duly accredited by the Independent National Electoral Commission, that in terms of the police, civil defense, DSS, road safety, these guys are those ones of, from the federal government of Nigeria, duly accredited, that the ones that are meant to man any security position tomorrow across the length and breadth of Adamawa State. If you remember, before now, Adamawa State, because of terrorism, is part of that state, those states in the northeast that had issues with terrorism, and they had some paramilitary organizations set up here and there, but they said tomorrow, you don't have any business in what we are doing tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be strictly for the Nigerian police force and some other security agencies that are accredited, duly accredited accredited by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, 2.1 million people in this northeastern part of the country in Adamawa State will be involved in tomorrow's exercise, and I was going through the collection rates of their PVC. It amounted to 89.1%. 89.1%. They didn't do badly when you look at the total statistics of the turnout for PVC. Adamawa State did not do badly. I think in subsequent bulletin, I'm just going to tabulate it to get their exact position. And the number of people that did not collect their PVC, just a little bit, about 6,000 people. So I think good to go in terms of voters awareness, in terms of level of preparedness, level of readiness. But the snag is when we got to town yesterday, it was this Naira thing. A lot of people were concerned because the Inspector General of Police actually announced that between 12 midnight tonight and 6 p.m. tomorrow, there is going to be total restriction of movement. If we have total restriction of movement, people want to buy things at home. Now the purchasing power is not there. Apart from the purchasing power not there, a lot of people, instead of doing last-minute shopping that we see on a day like this, running to the market, trying to buy one or two things, all the banks were filled to capacity, and we had long queues of people, want to withdraw in panic, trying to get at least 2,000 naira, trying to get 1,000 naira, so that they can get something and put home tomorrow because of the restriction of movement. And this, this is like, affecting the mood and the spirit. So you can't really gauge what the mood is like in Adamawa State, because they are all concentrating in how I'm going to get the naira, that in case the elections spill over till Sunday, if the restriction of movement spill over till Sunday, that their family, they will be able to survive at home. This is a major issue right now, Mike. It's a major issue. Talking in terms of security, they have it all locked down across their 16 local governments. They have a new commissioner of police that has been redeployed. One thing they did, this Inspector General of Police, one thing he did is that they actually altered the security architecture. We have some states that they have 2-3 commissioners of police, yes, that are going to be on duty for tomorrow's exercise in a state, and that's novel. Something we know that, the normal commissioner of police in that state, but there was a shake-up even before this exercise across the military, the security, the police, high-ranking police officers, from the AIG to the DIGs. Right now in Adamawa State, they have a new commissioner of police. Any moment from now, we are going to be meeting the new commissioner of police, and he's going to take charge of what is going to be happening between the 16 local governments in Adamawa State. And one other interesting thing is that a lot of people, they are very, they're enthusiastic to come out for tomorrow's exercise. They've been talking about it, and you could see the frenzy across the states yesterday.
All right. Okay, let me ask you this before I let you go. Adamawa State is quite a large state. Are there terrains that are quite challenging to reach? What have you been hearing from those you spoke with?
Yes, the Independent National Electoral Commission, what they've done is that before today, the non-sensitive and the sensitive materials across the 16 local governments, they've been able to, get it across. So on getting to the state's Independent National Electoral Commission office, to the INEC, the state's INEC, nothing was happening there today, because they've succeeded and they've completed as at 12 noon deployments. So the only thing you have is those local governments that are within the state capital, and they've gone to those works. So nothing is happening in those offices, and I asked the officials there, and they told me categorically that the full deployment have been made, and they've gotten feedback from the 16 local government that they are ready to go from 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, Mike.
It's good to have an idea of what's going on and how the enthusiasm in the air is there in Yola and across Adamawa State. Thank you very much, Ayo Zubaku, for letting us know what's happening in Adamawa State. All right, here in the studio, I have Professor Anthony Killer, strategy and development expert. We've been looking at things, and also joining me on Zoom all the while we've been talking is former Electoral Commissioner of INEC, Mikey Guinea. we have been making sense of the build-up to the election. Very soon, any moment from now, we'll be joining and linking to or handing over to our studio in Abuja for more perspectives to the election. But before then, Mike, let me come to you on this. Professor in the studio was talking earlier, and he said he looks forward to a time where we can all have what one may call virtual voting, in such a way that we don't have to converge people in a place, because this convergence of people is what makes it more expensive, is what makes it more threatening in the area of security and the anxiety in the air. What do you make, how realistic would that be to have a virtual voting system in Nigeria? Mike?
Well, first and foremost, as a country and as an institution, we must continue to innovate. Because several years ago, the internet was a mystical province of the physicists. It is today a commonplace encyclopedia. So any institution that fails to embrace improvement in technology obviously will be overtaken by the chaos of decline and decay. In that regard, what he has said, we are not far from that. But we are being careful in terms of looking at the level of our infrastructure. I mean, just look at the very simple technology that we're trying to deploy, from the car reader now to the BVAS. What do you hear about? Efforts are being made to try to thwart our effort. Where we are right now, a time is coming where truly we don't have to shut down economy because we are doing elections. We are getting there. After this election, we want to see how it happens. Once we are done with this election, and I can tell you that INEC have developed quite a number of solutions to deal with historical challenges of election service delivery in our country. All those things he has said, we are going to get there. Where we are now, we are at the level of what they call maturation, which is trying to mature. We are at the level of infancy, so to speak, on account of the kind of people we have had thrown up in our system, people who have little or no philosophical insight towards governance. Leadership is all about. So we are going to get there. After all, we are now doing what we call online voter registration. We don't used to do that before. Today, we are now talking about upload of result from the polling unit, which everybody could see. We don't have that before. So the era of democracy will usually be cured by more democracy. But I think that there are some very strong issues he has raised there, which I don't want to go into, because to say, I agree that the two greatest threats to democracy or a liberal democracy, issue about poverty and issue of a level of literacy in any society. Even the United Kingdom that introduced Nigeria into election rigging itself, vote buying was so rampant in England in the 19th century until the 1832 Reform Act, that started the process of changing the narrative. Election was not a one-day affair in England before. Vote buying was so rampant in England. In the borough of Stanford alone, £5,000 was used to purchase 850 voters.
All right, Mike.
1,000 voters. So we know all of that.
Yes.
So, but where we are, because I want us to focus on, I want this program, because this is really accepted to be part of this program, is to want to tell what needs to happen tomorrow.
Yes,
what
exactly.
People need to know to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
I don't want to go into any theoretical schemas about what I want to see what will happen tomorrow.
Very good.
That Nigerians need to know. That's what I want us to focus on.
Yes. Well, we will come back to talk about that, how the process should be tomorrow and what people should know and what people should understand. Thank you very much, Mike Igini. We'll come back to all of this. All right, let's go on a short break. And after the break, I'll be handing over to my colleague, Precious Amayo, who is in our Abuja studio. He has some guests with him. He'll be discussing with First Public Relations Officer Olumuyiwa Adejobi, as well as other guests in Abuja. Stay with us on Nigeria Decides.
Good morning.
Good morning. Why is your sun shining like this?
Can't you see that Harmattan season is here? We need to protect our children from this dry weather.
What about the invisible germs?
Invisible germs?
During Harmattan, it's not enough to only protect your skin. You also need protection from these invisible germs. To protect our families, we use Dettol.
Harmattan season brings a lot of germs, but Dettol with Germ Defense gives protection from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available on Google Play and Apple Store.
In the month of February, 4th of February is World Cancer Day. 6th of February is International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, while 11th of February is dedicated to women and girls in science. On the 12th of February, it's International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers, also known as Red Hand Day. On the 20th, it's World Day of Social Justice. By the 24th, it will be 1 year since the Russia-Ukraine war broke out. Stay tuned to TVC News as we bring you in-depth reports and analysis on these events.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
The TVC News at 7 and the TVC News at 10 are not like any other news broadcast.
It's the big news hour, the hour for the big breaking stories.
We've got some of the best reporters on the field,
taking you through as it happens.
It's fast-paced, hard-hitting,
with investigations that matter.
bringing in news that affects your life.
With sport, entertainment and business news so you don't miss a thing.
Experience resourceful coverage with depth.
Every night.
All right, you're watching Decision 2023, where we're building up to the election tomorrow. Nigerians are very enthusiastic, looking forward to what is going to be in few hours from now. But let's hand you over to my colleague Precious Amayo in Abuja studio. She is there to speak with the Force Public Relations Officer, Olumuyiwa Dejobi, as well as board chair of KDI Election Data Room, Dr. Abiola Akinode Afolabi. All right, Precious, it's good to speak with you right now. How is Abuja this evening?
Mike, it's good to hear your voice. You can imagine how quiet Abuja is. Abuja is normally quiet, but the traffic has reduced even further. You know that the president has traveled to Katsina to vote. That's where his polling unit is. The vice president is also out to Ogun State. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is out, along with all members of the House of Representatives. The senators are out, along with the President of the Senate. So you can imagine how quiet Abuja is today. But I also sort of chuckled earlier, Mike, when you said that Nigeria, a lot of people can't sleep tonight, and I agree with you. It's a lot of people are anticipating, you know, the ability to use the power of their thumb tomorrow, because it is a lot of power, Mike, when you can use your thumb to decide who is your next president, who is your next leader in terms of your constituency or your senatorial district. All right, thanks for joining us live from Abuja studio as we continue to monitor events shaping up the presidential and National Assembly elections coming up in just a few hours, when Nigerians will be electing the next president. Now, as it stands, the Independent National Electoral Commission says the senatorial elections in Enugu East will not hold, and that's following the murder of Oyebochukwu on Wednesday night. Now, INEC chairman says the elections will now hold alongside the governorship polls. He said those concerned have reached out to the electoral body to convey their intention to provide a replacement and go ahead with the poll at the new date. Late Oyebochukwu and his personal assistant were assassinated on Wednesday when hoodlums attacked them and set their vehicle ablaze in Enugu.
I would like to quote verbatim Section 34, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, which says, and I quote, "If after the time for the delivery of nomination paper and before the commencement of poll, a nominated candidate dies, the Chief National Electoral Commissioner shall, being satisfied of the fact of death, countermand the poll in which the deceased candidate was to participate, and the Commission shall appoint some other convenient date for the election within 14 days, unquote. The Labour Party has provided satisfactory evidence of the death of its candidate. Consequently, the Commission has suspended the election in the senatorial district as provided by law. We have already communicated this decision to our Enugu State Office. Therefore, there will be no senatorial election in Enugu East Senatorial District, made up of 6 local government areas, 77 wards, and 1,630 polling units tomorrow, Saturday, the 25th of February, 2023. The election will now be combined with the governorship and state assembly elections holding in the next 2 weeks on 11th March 2023. Materials already delivered for the senatorial election will remain in the custody of the central bank in the state until the new date for the election. We are glad about the progress we are making with the movement of materials to various locations around the country. Having deployed these materials to the local government areas, we are today devolving deployment to the registration area centers so that early morning tomorrow, the polls will open as planned. These registration area centers have been activated and election duty staff have started arriving in them. The Commission is aware of the situation in Imo State, in the southeastern part of the country, where it was reported that some of the critical polling unit officials drawn from the National Youth Service Corps have withdrawn their participation from some local government areas as a result of perennial insecurity. From the report we received from our state office, concerns have been expressed about the security situation in Osu local government area, 5 wards in Okigwe, and 6 in Olu local government areas. However, we have been assured that with enough mobilization of security personnel to the area, it is possible for elections to hold in these locations.
And that's the INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, speaking there. But several stakeholders have also been raising concerns in terms of preparations for this election. For the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies and its stakeholders, they're concerned about the low participation of women, youths, and people with disability. At a press conference preceding the opening of the Political Watch Command in Abuja, the group observed that 11 states are without female governorship candidates, and only 4 states with candidates with disability. Commending the level of participation of young people as senatorial candidates, the group notes that 15 states still do not have youths as their senatorial candidates. They want political parties to do better in future elections by involving more women, youths, and people with disabilities in their activities.
When we have good percentage of the population participating in the process, we can confidently say that our democracy is healthy. But as we have it, our democracy is work in progress, because over the years, Nigeria has continued to be on the wrong side of data on inclusive participation and representation, as well as the fact that we are likely going to be sliding further when we consider the percentage of youth, women, and persons with disabilities.
You know, the leadership recruitment processes of a lot of these political parties are very, they leave a lot to be desired. A 12 with the exclusion of underrepresented groups, And for this particular project, inclusive practices, the traditionally excluded groups that we are focused on are women, youths, and people living with disabilities. So this particular, this set of excluded people.
So let's take a look at some of these concerns being raised further. I have joining me Dr. Abiola Akiyode Afolabi. She's the board chairman, KDI Election Data Room. She's going to be wearing two hats in this conversation because she's also the head of Women Advocate Research and Documentation Center. So we're speaking to her on several issues. Good to have you join us.
It's a pleasure.
So I want to start with you had the last story report we took, where the National Institute of Research and Strategic Studies is saying, look, we do not have enough women, we do not have enough youths, we do not have enough people with disability going into this election. But have we made any progress at all in that regard?
Well, it's unfortunate we haven't. And if you trace the election results from 1999 till now, I think the highest we have ever got was about 6.7%, in the elected position, and that's very bad. And so, if you look at also looking at the candidates for this election, you can see that we have about 10%, in the House of Assembly that are women, and it's a great concern. Looking at the number of men who are contested, so you have about 10,000 for the House of Assembly, and you just have just about 10% of them, as women. So it is, and if you also look at people with disability, just 4, it's ridiculous. In actual fact, it's much more ridiculous if you look at the presidential election. There's only one woman, that's emerged as presidential candidate, of one of the political parties. And if you look at the vice president's position, the number, there's even no single woman, in that category. And if you take it down, then you know that there's a lot of discrimination going on.
And perhaps that's the maths that a lot of people can't seem to figure out, because you have a lot of women who have been registered to vote. You have a lot of women who turn out to vote, but you don't have women, as candidates. And a lot of people don't understand that maths, why we can turn up to vote, why we can register, but we can't be voted for. What do you find to be the sort of challenge here?
Well, there are a lot of issues, and it has to do with political parties. Whether we like it or not, the political parties, they remain the gatekeepers for people to be able to enter into politics. And so if there are issues within the political parties, and of course the issues that we know and we're aware of, the issue of money, godfatherism, internal party democracy. So when you even have women, who are good, who can compete, who can contest, the godfatherism within the political party will make it very difficult for them to be able, to emerge as candidates. And we saw that, playing out at every election, including the 2023 primaries, in Nigeria. And that's why you see that even if you look at the data and you look at the so-called big political parties, you don't even find women, amongst them. And so you have to go to the new political parties, to be able to find women. When they try to get into that position to win primaries with the big political parties, if they are not allowed, then they have to go to the new, political parties. And, that to a large extent shows the kind of exclusion. And of course, money is still playing a lot of role, in politics, and women don't have that kind of money, to play the kind of politics.
So I was going to ask you about that, because in 2019, out of the over, I think, 1,000 female candidates we had across Nigeria, only about 62 women were elected. Is this an issue? Because I know you've raised one issue of funding, but it can't be funding for all women, can it? Is there also an issue of electability for women?
Well, I don't think it's, because if we ask questions about electability for women, we ask the same question for men. We've seen men in the National Assembly. Now, if we go back to data, in the National Assembly, Stella Odua happens to be one of the people who had brought the highest number of motion, in the House. So, and if you look at the women currently, as few as the men, in the National Assembly, they are doing very well in terms of leading bills, that have translated into laws, and also leading motions, and also heading, committees, within the House. So it is not about electability, because there are several women that can actually fill that position, that are actually interested in contesting, and becoming members of National Assembly, Senate, President, but the political party is the major issue. Now, in some countries where they have tried to address it, because it's not peculiar to Nigeria, there are also other issues of culture, there are issues of religion, so in other countries they've tried to use the law, the constitution. Recently, I think in 2011, Kenya had two-third rule, for their Senate and for their Senate, so that they can have more women, like two-thirds of women, in the House. And we see in other places. Recently, Syria alone even did the same thing. So you can't achieve this without an affirmative action. And so in Nigeria, we have not been able to get to that level. In countries, you either have a political party, allowing that to happen, or you have the constitution, which is a grand number
that enforces that. But I want to sort of move away. We're still talking about women, but I want to sort of move away into the election itself, because at the briefing today, I was listening to your colleague, and I know she's your colleague, and I know I also think you guys, you both of you are friends. I think that's Obiane, who is the country director, yes, Enobi, who is the country director of Action Aid. She raised a very critical issue. I'm not sure a lot of people have paid attention to that. She was talking about issues of security for women during the election, and that's the voting itself. And she sort of suggested the idea of gender-targeted security, where, let's pay attention to women whilst we're voting. Do you agree with that?
Yes, very well, very well. There's a lot of analysis around electoral violence targeted at women. It's run through the entire electoral period, whether it is pre, during, or post-election, and we have several records. For example, I think in Osun State, when Aregbe Shola became the governor, and when he won the election and it was not declared, so there was a problem, and women were raped, in Elisha and some other places. So it's being dated with history, and we have data. In the last election in 2019, election officials also had their own share of electoral violence, targeted at them because they are women. There are records of rape and a lot of other sexual abuse, against, women who were at different polling stations who are also polling officials. So it is a major concern, it's a major issue, but you don't see, when we talk about election security, you don't see a lot of focus on that. But women are also, in different ways, suffering not only physical violence, emotional violence, psychological violence. If you are married to a politician and there is threats, to your husband, staying at home, that in itself can cause emotional violence to you. So there are different ways that women are suffering, one form of violence or the other during the election, but which are not seen, which are not recorded. And I think that's why we need to genderize our conversation about politics, about election, so that we don't continue to exclude, people, in the process of electioneering in the country.
Do you expect more turnout for women this year? But when in terms of your observation, and I know you've been monitoring elections over the years, what have you found? Have you found that women turn out more than men? And do you expect women to turn out even more this year? Even though we have men as they have the highest figure in terms of voter registration, but do you think that women will turn out more than men?
Well, it's about 49% to 49.7 or thereabout, so 50%. So it's not really so different. But there are so many reasons why women will not turn out. If there is a lot of tension, if there is a possible outbreak of law and order, and of course from what we can see coming up from the KDI data situation room, for example, we are aware that 395 incidents of electoral violence, have been recorded in the last 1 year. So meaning that there is a potential, there is high potential of violence in this coming election. So that in itself can be a problem, for women to, come out to vote. But that's been the way it is. But I am sure quite a number of women, if you look at the past election, we have had like insinuations like this, but women still came out to vote.
Absolutely.
So we're still expecting.
I guess it's the passion. But let's move away from women and just talk about this election general, because I said you're wearing two hats in this conversation. So I'm switching to your hat as the chairman of the board of KDI Electoral Data Room. Talk to us, what for you would be the minimum credibility threshold for this election?
Well, I think to Nigerians, let me just first make this clear. The new Electoral Act is going to really be a law that is probably going to determine the legitimacy of this election. There are new issues around the election. There's technology, and we're seeing what happened in Osun State. So people are a little bit, uncomfortable, about the whole conversation about overvoting and how BVAS didn't work in that regard and all of that. So I think that it is that we need to really be. People are very optimistic about the technology, So it becomes very important, for INEC to make that to work for people, because if that seems to be one of the things, I won't say the only thing, one of the things that is actually encouraging people, to want to participate in the coming election, then it's important that would work.
But do you have any concerns, and what for you do you think would be the impact that BVAS would have on this election?
Well, I was in Osun, for example, and I know that we got to some places where it didn't work, and it took some time before they brought a replacement. But eventually we recorded like quite high number of BVAS working, functioning well. Especially if you compare that, to other elections where we didn't use technology. Now, so that's one of the challenges. So if we can get enough and they can get a replacement in places where, the BVAS is not working, then that would, make the election much more, effective. And of course, the other thing which I also think worked well, with the Osun election was also the fact that you can see it in real time. Before 5 o'clock, people were already looking at the view, to check. You are already looking at your computer. You can log into INEC's website and see the progress of the election. So that also gives some kind of confidence. So if that can be repeated, especially in a larger election like this, it will bring more confidence to the people, with respect to the credibility of that election.
So that delay, you talked about how some BVAS weren't working and they had to be replaced, and that took a lot of time. That gap where people are waiting to vote, what is your worry concerning that gap? Is it that people will be disenfranchised? Are you worried about fraud? What's your worry about that?
No, it was actually the fact that it might really kickstart some form of violence. People have been there since 7 o'clock, waiting. They've been on the line. Then the BVAS was not working, and it took almost 3-4 hours, for them to get a replacement. We had to also start making calls, and all of that, because people at the point were getting agitated. So, and if you have that happening in several places, especially because a typical Nigerian would think that someone is about to rig the election. So if you have anything that looks like, something that you expect to happen is not happening, it can really lead to breakdown.
People think that probably there's foul play or something. But I just in just 2 seconds, tell me what your projection in terms of voter turnout. Are we going to improve, or you think that we're going to remain the same?
I think we're going to improve, especially looking at the fact that we have a lot of young people, who are into this election, who are interested in voting, and you can see a lot of them, are talking about their voters card and all of that. So if we have that huge population that is ready, to vote, and if you also look back, people between the ages of 18 and 35, and also from 35 and 60, have also participated, effectively. So if they're out tomorrow, I think we should have a good turnout.
All right, we'll take your word for it. We hope that a cash crunch isn't keeping people in their homes, but we encourage people to come out and vote. It's a one time in 4 years you get to do that. Thank you so much for talking to us. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Dr. Abiola Akiyode Afolabi, who is the board chair of KDI Election Data Room. Now over to you, Mike. I'm sure you've been following the conversation. We're optimistic here in Abuja that we'll have high voter turnout, irrespective of the cash crunch in the country today. Mike?
Yeah, one area that we were even quite interested is the turnout for women, because women have been very committed and diligent when it comes to voter turnout at elections. So we don't hope to see anything different by tomorrow when everyone comes out to vote tomorrow. Thank you very much. All right, we're back here in Lagos. We have been talking to Professor Anthony Killer, a strategy and development expert. He has been with us in the studio. And we also have Mike Igini, former resident electoral commissioner, joining us on Zoom. We'll go on a short break and then we'll come back to continue on our discussions here. Stay with us. All right, it's Decision 2023, and here in TVC, we've opened the studio and we're building up to the election tomorrow as Nigerians troop out to vote for whom they want as their next president. All right, we have our correspondent across every state in Nigeria to bring you up to speed with what's going on. From tonight, we've been speaking to some of them, and we'll keep speaking to some of them to bring you up to speed with what's going on. I have with me in the studio Professor Anthony Killer and Mikey Guinea joining me on Zoom. Also, my colleague Kemi Foladiemo is here to also join the conversation. Nice to have you join me too.
Good to be here,
Great.
Mike. And good evening, Professor Killer and Mr. Guinea.
Great. Now, let me cross over to Mike now, because I'd like us to use the next moments to talk about what tomorrow will look like, what the voter, the average voter, will expect when he just arrives at the polling unit. Where is the first point of call, and what is the next item, as the case may be? Can you run us through what can likely happen tomorrow on the ideal basis?
All right, thank you. First, any of voters who are watching this program, the first thing you should do now is that you can locate your polling unit. Just go into Google, all right? Just type cvr.admin.inec Nigeria, cvr.admin.inec Nigeria. It will take you straight. It will ask you a few questions and will take you straight to your polling unit, all right? Location. Now, tomorrow morning, you must go with your PVC. Without your PVC, you will not be admitted into the arena of the polling station. Now, with your PVC, what is going to happen tomorrow? The accreditation process is a dual process. In the likely event that any of your 10 figures could not be confirmed, of course, they have to do what they call the facial. So, because of that, there will be no incident form. In the unlikely event that a BVAS have an issue, there's already a redundant extract BVAS that have been already been given to each of the RAs. They are going to immediately supply a new one there. So no incident form. There is nothing like preloading of BVAS, because before the commencement, the party agents and the observers and voters are there. You just raise up the BVAS to show the status. It's going to be showing 0. Of course, I've said something like that to you people to see. Now, after there are 5 methods with which they can identify. So there's no way you can talk about issue of incident form totally buried. It's not going to work anymore. And everybody must go through that process. The whole idea of the BVAS is to ensure that no identity theft anymore. Today, INEC is no longer producing what we call tender ballot, which on account of the previous system, no more tender ballot. Number 3, at the polling unit with the BVAS, there's the fraudulent practice of sharing unused ballots under the old system, where they organize themselves. At the end of the poll, they now shared unused ballots that ought to be crossed. Whether they are crossed, they are not crossed. Right now, there's no more unused ballot to be used. Now, at the end of the poll, the accreditation process itself is also a dual process. That is, when the scores of the party have entered from EC8A, the duplicates will now be given to all party agents and security present. Immediately after that, the presiding officer is expected to snap the image of the form EC8A that is going to upload into the INEC IREV, the result viewing portal of that particular polling unit, for the whole world to see it before proceeding with the hard copy to the war collection officer. That is why it is important for party to now have agent. And I want to say something about party agents here, so that people who are talking, raising all kinds of issues about party, let me be clear with you people here, a general public. It is that with the current regime, ordinarily, if not that, we are paying the costs of distrusts, the cost of impunity in our country. We don't need an agent that now making candidates to spend so much money because they need to have a party agent. But however, because everything that they used to do before have been taken care of by the innovations we have there. But however, the beauty of having a party agent now, apart from the fact that the Nigerian people are going to be the real agent on tomorrow, because they are going to be there. They must ensure that every result, before you leave your polling unit, that you must get that result. But before I even go to that point, once you enter the cubicle, you are not expected to use your telephone. And in any case, the current set of security personnel that have been deployed to the polling units, they will be the one that are now charged with responsibility, because they are going to be they are going to be charged if they fail to report incident of vote buying. You are not expected to show who you have voted for, because the ballot paper will be folded as given to you when you go to the cubicle. Now, after making your choice secret, you now come and put it on the ballot in what you call in an open one. And that's why Nigerian system is different. Ours is called secret, going to the cubicle, open, you come to the public glare and you put it there. Right. To avoid, unlike in other jurisdiction, the box ought to have been beside or inside the cubicle. But we were very conscious of the fact that in Nigeria, what happened time past, people could have extra ballots in their pocket. That is why what we have is what we call remodified, secret, open balloting system. Now, at the end of the poll, that image that have been snapped, that have been uploaded, as we speak now, any Nigerian today, just go to go to Google and type INEC result portal. If you go there, all the elections that we have conducted recently, INEC before I left, you are going to see all the original copies, the original in the system. You can select any of the governorship, House of Assembly, senatorial, all those by-elections. You are going to see those results there. Now, the beauty of party agent now is that once they have been given their duplicates, and having regard to the part that they have set up their situation room, they will be the first, and the Nigerian people, the public, to know the result. Because a presiding officer, Michael, where you are over there, you are a work relation officer. The hard copy, I am now a presiding officer. I've given duplicate to party agent. Party agent may not need to go to their situation room, but they can merely send the data for their computation over there, even though they cannot make a declaration. But with respect to me, I will now have to go with the hard copy to deliver it to you. The real game changer here is this. In the old regime, where we have started a supported rigging, between the opening of the poll, the close of the poll, Mike, where you are over there as the work relation officer, you will not have any communication with me. On my way in the old system, they will change the result. Or when I get to you, we all connect together to change the result completely. But the beauty of what we have now is that from the polling unit, once it is uploaded,
describing the
when I come to you,
electoral process. Mr. Guinea, can you hear me? All right, let's put you on hold, Mr. Guinea. Many thanks for your step-by-step description of how to ensure that voters, that the votes of the electorate count on election day. That's tomorrow. In the meantime, let's quickly check with our correspondents, one of our several correspondents who are monitoring preparations ahead of Saturday's polls. This time around, senior correspondent Sharon Ejason is standing by for us in Anambra State. It's good to see you, Sharon. How are things looking from your end? Hello, Sharon, are you there? Hello. All right. Hello, Sharon, are you there?
I didn't get your question.
In terms of preparations for Saturday's election in Anambra State, how are things looking from your end?
Looking at activities that happened in Awka, Anambra today, it can be said that the independent National Electoral Body is actually ready for election, because since yesterday, there's been onward movement of sensitive materials from Awka to different parts of the local government area in Anambra State. We have 21 local government areas in Anambra, and the REC confirmed today that all of the local government area have received sensitive materials.
And for the voters, on the part of the voters, from those you engaged with earlier in the day, how can you, or how would you assess their level of preparedness?
Well, everyone here in Anambra State is actually ready for the election. We have a lot of people that have collected their PVCs and they are ready to perform their franchise. However, the concern will be that of security, and that's why we have the Deputy Inspector General of Police here in Oka, who visited Oka today and also is on his way to Imo State to ascertain the level of preparedness of the security officers. Take a listen to the conversation that he had with policemen in Oka, Anambra State.
Okay, let's talk to this now. I want to like to everybody. Where is your
The southeast part of this country is full part of the Nigerian state. So we will ensure that election goes on. Nobody born of a woman can stop election in this state. We are ready for them. We are ready to ensure free, fair, and credible election, acceptable election. That has been the preaching of Mr. President and the Inspector General of Police. We are here to make sure we carry out the mandate of the Inspector General of Police as handed over by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Law-abiding citizens, we are there to protect you. Go out and cast your vote. Nobody will molest you.
All right. Of course, we're still speaking with TVC News senior correspondent Sharon Ejason, who is live for us in Anambra State. And only seconds ago, we heard the police there giving assurances on Saturday's polls, assuring residents that they should come out en masse to cast their ballots. But Sharon, if you're still there and if you can still hear me, how is this, resonating? How is this assurance from the police resonating with the average residents in Anambra State? Of course, the realities on ground. We saw about the dastardly killing of the candidate in Enugu State, and generally the risks that people have, associated with the Southeast at this time of elections. But how is this resonating with, what you're seeing on the streets, this reassurance of the police versus the average readiness of the resident there in Anambra State to come out and vote on Saturday?
Well, I can tell you on authority from what I can see that everywhere is actually calm. People are calm and ready to exercise their franchise or their civic responsibility. And the security presence in Oka and other parts of the state is also reassuring for an average resident in Anambra State. Before now, we got the information that there are about 2.5 million registered voters in Anambra, and we have 5,000 PVCs that were not picked. This is to also explain to you that the residents of Anambra State are politically active. They are interested in performing their civic responsibility, and the reassurance from the Nigerian police force and other security agencies will further encourage them to come out. According to the Deputy Inspector General of Police, if you are not a criminal, you shouldn't be afraid to come out tomorrow. But if anyone is a criminal and wants to truncate the process, that the person, of course, has a lot to fear, and that the Nigerian police force has performed fairly, according to him, in the previous elections that took place recently. That is referring to the election that happened in Osun State, the one that happened in Ekiti State. And he said that's what the president of the country has encouraged them to do, to ensure that they guard sensitive materials, to ensure that the election is free and fair, and that they are ready and encouraged to do their job. and that no one has any reason to worry about safety, as their safety is guaranteed, be it residents, be it visitors, be it electoral observers or journalists themselves.
All right, Sharon, there has been the issue of set-at-home order given by groups to people, and it's a source of concern to a lot of people. I wonder how this is playing out in the preparation to election. What are the people saying, and what are you seeing?
Well, referring back to the conference that was held today, of course, the police force admitted that there are some areas that are peculiar in nature because they are close to the border community in Anambra State, maybe connecting to Imo State and some other adjoining states. And they have already reinforced security in those areas that can be precarious. One thing we have to understand that it's not the first time that elections will be taken under this kind of intense situation, whereby we have state armed men, people that are not of the state, but are not security agents that actually are armed. And from research, there are more than 1,000 people that have died during election process in the last 3 elections that happened in 2015, 19, and thereabouts. And the security officers that says they've learned their lessons, they know what to do better, and that no one should be afraid to come out to perform their civic responsibility. Before now, people are always scared of coming out for election because probably thugs would probably steal the ballot boxes, and probably they are hired by desperate politicians. But right now, what we see is non-state actors that are harmed, that might want to attack people. But from the look of things, the police force and other security agencies seem to be on top of their game, and a lot of people expectant that no one will be disenfranchised. People are there's a lot of anxiety here in Anambra State because the state actually produced 2 presidential candidates, one from ABGA, the other one from Labour Party. So the state is very, very, very eager to come out to actually perform their civic responsibility, and the peculiarity of the region, I don't see it stopping them from coming out to perform their civic responsibility.
All right, thank you very much, Sharon E. Jackson, senior political correspondent there. Thank you very much for talking to us. Now, we still have Professor Anthony Killer with us here in the studio, and Mikey Guinea on Zoom. Now, Professor, you mentioned earlier sometime when we're talking that election should be like Christmas Day.
Yes.
And some people have said that, you know, in some countries when election comes, it's like a carnival, it's like a festival. People look forward to it, and it's like New Yam Festival in my village, where everybody just feels happy, just look forward to. But it doesn't seem to be the same in Nigeria. It looks like we're preparing for war, like you mentioned earlier. Yeah. But if we have to start changing that narrative, what are the steps to take to do that, to achieve that?
Well, I think the first thing is to really diffuse the importance that we give to politics. You know that our daily lives is as important as the lives of politicians. Of course, politics affects us, but what I talk about is the supremacy of the civil society. And by civil society, I do not mean organizations. I mean carpenters and doctors, traders and tailors, our normal life where we just love, learn, trade, and exchange. We need to understand that that is a very important thing, and we shall not let the ambitions of others be more than our own self, so that we stop identifying and we start demanding. So, for example, you were talking to Anambra, and I'm delighted, I'm happy to hear the Deputy Inspector General of Police come out in a very assertive way to show that this part of the country is still Nigeria and they will vote. But guess what? I wish they had done that when people could not go to school. I wish they had said that, acted that way when business were being shut down, and we were losing millions and billions of money because there was no trade in the Southeast. There's some people who's been out of school that we've left behind. You know, I wish, because of somebody going to see her boyfriend or his boyfriend that cannot go out on Monday, I wish they had sent the NPF, the Nigerian Police Force, to go and make sure people can exercise their freedom of movement, that people can practice their trade, that people can watch it for their own self, not because we're choosing politicians. You know, better a bit than nothing. So this is a good step. To your question, how do we ensure this? I think we need to discover the respect for self and we create a country where the citizens matter more than those in power, where we actually understand that they are there to serve, not us to serve, and look at them like gods. That is the narrative that should start from our schools, from our churches, from the mosque, from our country club, and from our neighborhood. That people should start saying that you matter. You're the one that will send them to their offices, and they will be accountable to you. And based on that, then we can have civic, civilized, constructive conversations about who to vote for. Then we can look at that and say, oh, should we let that person go? And we can know that we're really looking at it, that who is this person that can save us? So it's not bitter. I mean, well, there's some complex private estates, but in normal small estates, when you decide who's going to be a chairman, it's not war. You know, you don't really hate yourself and start having big fights. You just decide. Sometimes you even beg people to do it because nobody wants to do it. But, you know, it's a normal to you, so that he knows people, he's well experienced, no, don't let this person do it. And you just move on, and there's no trouble about it. We need to turn the country to that way. Maybe the way to do it is to be nearer to power.
All right, Prof, let's put you on a hold once again and get back to hear more from Mr. Egini, former resident electoral commissioner. Mr. Egini, let's talk about, you know, some of the lapses. If we could do a form of post-mortem of INEC's role so far, all through this long period of preparing for the elections that's now upon us. People have said the registration process in itself of voters was fraught with challenges. It was rigid somewhat. Even moments ago, you were talking about how voters can identify their polling booth, and then you reeled out this link that people could go to, ascertain where indeed they can vote. But then some realities on ground will make one, ponder and ask whether indeed this is working or how well this is working. Or what if someone goes to the polling unit now, not knowing that perhaps his or her polling unit has changed? And of course, movements are now will be curbed, so to speak, from 12 midnight in many states. If the person cannot vote in that particular unit, that's it. The person will not vote eventually. How do we move from this area? How do we better the system? Or generally, what's your assessment of, these lapses?
Yeah.
Mr. Egini?
Frozen.
Mr. Egini, can you hear me, or did you get the question?
I guess we lost the signal.
All right. Perhaps I should push the question over to Prof while we try to reconnect with Mr. Egini. Prof, when you look at the entire process, even the point of collecting PVCs,
yes,
also raised some allegations that perhaps the process could have been hijacked by, desperate politicians.
Yeah.
What do you think of, where we are now, despite the innovations that INEC has recorded, that the system of voting has recorded so far in Nigeria?
Well, I think in fairness to INEC, I think they've made some improvements. I consider this improvement marginal. Now, those who know me that I'm not a generous marker, generally. I think I always see, what could be done better. I think INEC has done some things, and, they've really improved on a lot of things. There were still queues and pushing. But in my view, and, so we must acknowledge this marginal improvements. But in my view, if we really want to get it right, we need a quantum lift. We need a radical shift from the way our electoral process is conceived and managed today. And please, viewers, when I say this thing, please, it is important that you don't tell me that, oh, even in America they have this problem, because we don't have to go from where they went through. We don't have to live the 400 years they've lived before we get to where we're going today. After all, any Nigerian that wants to buy a mobile phone today, they don't buy the oldest mobile phone that was done 20 years ago. They buy the latest one. So we can actually not only start from where they stopped, I argue that we can teach the world. And guess why? Because some of us actually teach the world. Because some of us go to institutions across the world, some Nigerians, and we teach and we treat and we excel. So there's no reason for us to stand behind and make that cue. So we can actually start. I argue that in Nigeria, for example, there's some institutions that do well. I think, for example, we need to think of a way. We have to be allergic to queues. We have to say, we don't want Nigerians queuing up and losing their job. People see it as generous when they say a governor has declared a public holiday for people to go and collect their PVC. I cringe. That is business hours going. That is transactions going. That is the day somebody has planned to have a meeting that you've nullified. You know what? We need to find a way to reduce the number of people queuing. For example, this is not a great time to say it because of what is going on, but generally speaking, let us outsource creation of PVC to banks. Let us link it to their, what's the other one, BVN.
BVN.
You go to the bank, you collect your PVC. If you have no account, then maybe you go to your local government. But if you have it, go to the bank. So that way, we give people options. So everybody is not going to just INEC office and local government. We need to start thinking that way.
All right. I hope we get to that point in our history as a nation. Let me push that question back to Mr. Egini. I was asking moments ago about how we address some of the lapses that INEC recorded in this very, very delicate and important roles that it has had to bear for so long, particularly this dispensation of elections that are upon us now. During the accreditation process, there were lapses. During the collection of PVCs too, there were lapses that even gave room to, suspicions that perhaps it could have been hijacked by desperate politicians. And even now, tomorrow, how sure are we that we won't have voters who find themselves disenfranchised through no fault of theirs, especially with this issue of changing of polling units? Please respond.
Yes, well, thank you very much. You see, there have been so much reforms in INEC. Regrettably, unfortunately, what has not changed is the behavior of the political elites. They are the ones that constitute a threat to our democracy. Because if you look at some of this going on, just the BVAS, I mean, you could see the conspiracy against BVAS. We also saw the conspiracy against the car reader. They want to exploit every loophole, want to be exploited. And that is why, in a way, today, the total number registered is 93.5 million. Now, from the provisional data given with respect to PVC collection, is put at 87.2 million. Now, but do you know that on account of those provisions, Section 49, Section 53, and Section 68, that were rigging provisions that are out already. Today, tomorrow election, please take note. We are not going to reckon with, quote unquote, the 93.5, nor it's 7 point something PVC collected. Well, what is going to happen tomorrow is that in every polling unit, a new register will emerge based on the actual number of people who came and accredited. So the business of setting up figures of the register, bloating it up, it does not matter anymore. The computation is now based on total number accreditation. That is why you've not been hearing about inconclusive election. Inconclusive election was promoted by Section 53 of the now repealed 2010 Act that speaks of total number of registered voters instead of the actual people, because in any register of voters around the world on election day, It's not possible that where you have 1,000, all of them will come, because there are people who have died, which also have this register, like elsewhere around the world, those who have traveled, those who will not even come on election day. So where we are is that the way the BVAS even designed, it is designed in such a way that there's nothing you can do. You can only destroy it. Even when you destroy it, there's no election. That is where we are at the moment. The political class, the cost of election today, we are paying for impunity in our country. All the politicians who are boasting, they are this, they are that, and all of that. They want to rig election. If you left them in a room with a paper, they will have them taxed. Prof, let me say this here. The commission is being gradual. Nigeria can agree that since 2011, from the time when we came on board to where we are now, the kind of election that we are seeing today, they are a different class from what you used to see before. I can tell you here that after this election, because we want to see, and that's why people like me, I refuse to be all the application offer for consultancy. I said, no, I haven't been part of designing a process. I can never be a consultant to anybody, but rather be a consultant to Nigerian people. And that is why TVC had made this platform available for me every week, every other week, to speak on the law and procedure. So right now, this election we are going to see tomorrow, the beauty of it is that the young people of this country, the power is now back to them. Of the entire 93.5 million, 70,473,990, they constitute the demographic cohort. At the polling units, remember that whereas you have a total of 176,846 polling units, because we have expanded, which is one of the questions you asked. You remember that for 1996 or so, where we had polling unit creation, for 25 years, we could not create polling unit. That was why we have so many polling that were so congested. So for 25 years, that had not been done, but the commission was able to do it such that from the 119,000 or approximately 120,000 polling units we had for 25 years, we have now service areas, new settlement, and that is what is being published out there. Now, this election, the 176,006 polling units, it will be manned by youth corpers, the youth of this country. They are also in charge. Those of us from 50 years and above, we can only come and vote on that day. This is where we are at the moment. Therefore, this election on Saturday, let it be known that citizens, you go to the polling unit. Nobody, it's at the polling unit now that elections are now won and lost. Not at the work collation center, not at the local government, not at any other level of collation. Polling unit is now the center of universe.
But
this is what is going to happen.
We cannot rule out the intervention, quote and unquote, of the courts this time around. Yes, the power has come back to the people, but there is growing discontent from Nigerians as to why courts now have to determine who wins polls.
Very quickly here, let me say this here. We must be careful of the expanding empire of the courts in election matters. A court of law should not be made to answer political questions. In England, for a period of 99 years until 2010, there was no post-electoral adjudication in the United Kingdom on account of the fact which has been established ago by the retired Supreme Court Judge of England, when he told perhaps emerging democracies that in England, electoral matters are not discussed in court. It was initially in the parliament. But they discovered what happened there. Then they now took it to court. When they realized that politicians were now trying to take over the control of the judiciary in England, they decided that there must be a series of reforms. The reform, one of which was that if you attempt to rig election, if you are found trying to buy votes, you are banned for life in England. Today, we now have a permissive society. Because the warning of that assumption was that the moment you start taking matters of politics to court, there will be struggle by politicians to control judiciary. And you know that the first evidence, sign of the subversion of democracy, it starts with the rule of law. The moment they take control, are you not surprised in our country that politicians who do the wrong thing are the ones first to tell you that let's go to court. Today, the politician can walk into any court and get a court order. That is what they tell you. So we must be very careful. I can tell you here that the way the commission is going, we are going to end, the commission will end the business of election tribunal in Nigeria. As politicians, they spend more money in tribunal, in court, than in the main election. What are they? Are we building court during election petition period? Are we building court around Nigeria? Or how is that we are spending billions when it comes to election petition tribunal? Many people don't want to end today in this country. Section 68 allowed people to be declared under gunpoint. We have changed that law now. But there are some lawyers who are saying no, that people should be, as we speak, there are somebody in National Assembly who on account of gunpoint were returned. In Akwa Ibom, we prosecuted a professor who was promised heaven and earth, just manipulate the figures. We gave him, he got a 3 years in prison, 3 years jail term. Another professor is still on trial in Akwa Ibom. He's going to have his day. He can slow the process. This is where we are going. So this country, the will of Nigerian people must be determined finally and conclusively at the polling unit. Not, we must end the business in our country. Because if we don't do so, we are going to be in trouble because the politicians want to take over the control of the judiciary. That is my constituency. If you ask me today that, Mr. Igini, of all the stakeholders, where do you have your fears? I can tell you that I'm worried, very worried and disturbed about my constituency. They must stand tall and mighty. The defense of democracy and the rule of law.
All right.
Saturday election is so important. Nobody should joke with it. Nigerians are angry. They are hungry. They will make a statement with this election. Look, many are going to have the dinosaur experience because the system that is in place, they are jokers. Nigerians, it is your vote that will matter. Anybody who thinks extra constitutional actors that will mess up with the process, good luck to him. And that's why I commend the president, commend him clearly for the charge he has given to security agencies. And I hope, and from the reports from your various locations, it is clear that the directive that they must neutral, remain apolitical, they are following it up. Because election moment is the period when you evaluate the commitment of the personnel of security to the ideal of that country. They must defend democracy tomorrow, which is what they have started. And by tomorrow, the operational order that has been given must be implemented fully. And I call on the IG to continue what he has been doing before to ensure that no governor tomorrow must be seen with red tuning security. Tomorrow is the day of the people. Tomorrow is the people's day. The day of Nigerian people to exercise their residual sovereignty to make a decision. Nigerian people must sing a new song. We must end the struggle to build individual paradise and live in a common herd in our society.
All right.
This must come to an end.
Okay.
Power is back with Nigerian.
All right. It's really interesting because power going back to the people who own it is what Nigerians have been clamoring for over the years. Thank you so much. Now, Professor, we talk about improvements. Yes. You know, we talk about entrenching democracy. We talk about gaining experience, you know, for every republic. Now, if you make comparison between the four republics we've had since independence, yes. How peculiar, how different or similar are they between each other and against each other?
Just two things before we go into that. The commissioner when he was naming the people jailed, he kept on naming professors. I advocate they should jail some INEC people and some politicians as well. I mean, shame on the professors as well who go there selling votes, you know, big shame on them. But, you know, they allow Mikey Guinea to come and be calling the professors that are jailing. What about the INEC people? But that, by the way. So I think, well, so far so bad, I must say, unfortunately.
Wow.
Because, and this is a very peculiar thing about Nigeria, and I have a personal experience for this, which can be rather hurtful, because the whole world tends to improve. We don't tend to improve generally. It's a very sad thing. You know, I guess I'm a romantic person, but I'm not a nostalgic person. I like innovations. I celebrate progress. But the fact is that the quality of leadership, public debate, and behaviors we've had, if you consider them from republic after the other, I do not see grand improvements. And this, in a way, is the history of Nigeria. The founding fathers of the very first republic was a group of young, visionary leaders who articulate and had great oratory skills. You know, they had big vision. The idea of Nigeria was a country that would lead Africa. And hence they went on to build stadiums, to build schools, and to do things. They were truncated by the coup in a very, you know, silly way. Some of them tried to come back in the Second Republic, and they achieved something. You can see, and I say this not because they're far away, it's because fact demonstrated. You know, there are big debates. So, for example, in the Republic of the UPN and PN, there were cardinal points, the famous 4 cardinal points of the UPN. You knew immediately where you stood on matters. But as we go on, what we have is not so illuminating, is not so inspiring. So to that extent, we have a problem, not progress. You know, that said, the population is bigger. What is painful as well is that the level of technology that was available then is way minimal to what is available now. But we have not linked that general objective scientific global progress to our own national collective progress. And that is a shame. So at the moment, we have more Nigerians leaving the country for survival rather than for growth than we had in the First Republic, than we had in the Second Republic. There was a time in this country where going abroad to study or going to private school to study was a thing of shame. If you were bright enough, you went to state school, you went to public schools. But it's the other way around now. And I think we need to give those kind of things a thought.
All right. And then I'm also, you know, curious to know what your projections are, because yes, many people have said this particular cycle of elections, you know, brings so many dynamics.
Yes.
When you look at, you know, 3 of the 4, you know, front runners, it's been said that each of them represents a major tribe, you know, and while we are here, but then there's a place where we want to be, where we will all attain nationhood as against ethnic identity. You monitored the primary exercises.
Yes.
You saw how, you know, it was fought with so many, you know, bickering on basis of religion, on basis of, you know, ethnicity and all that.
Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, this time around, as we head to the polls on Saturday, we'll crack all these divisions and, you know, go towards the real nationhood that we want?
Well, I don't know, but I know something. People might be divided in tribes and groups and religion as much as they want. In reality, the person who's going to vote, because that's what who's going to win, because that's what the Constitution says, is somebody that can cross that divide.
Absolutely.
To be the president of Nigeria, you need to be accepted by more than your own people. So there's no point me saying, I'm voting for my own person. If everybody votes for their own person, nobody's going to win. So I think Nigerians should start thinking that way as well. The leaders have failed us. They've not been able to build a nation in Nigeria. People should try to build a nation now.
All right.
All right, we have to wrap it up here, and we thank you so much, Professor Anthony Killer, Strategy and Development Expert, for your insight and your perspective that is mind-provoking. I believe leaders who are coming in will will look at some of these things and begin to think of how to begin to imbibe some innovation into our leadership generally. We thank Mike Igini for joining us as well, former resident Electoral Commission of INEC. We thank you for your insight and education as well. We need more of this as we get along, and thank you for making yourself available for us to always enlighten the public regarding how to go about voting and so on. Thank you very much.
Right. Yes, thank you very much. And just to tell Prof there that the conduct of those two professors does not represent the overwhelming good job of the majority of professors that we work with. They are still going to work with INEC.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I believe that satisfies Professor now.
Well, he must, because we're trying to recruit him to teaching. So he better be nice to us.
All right. And my colleague, Precious Amayo, on behalf of her as well in Abuja and all the guests there, we thank you very much. And Kemi is also here. Thank you very much for joining us. Top of the hour, we'll be bringing you the news update for the time. Thank you very much.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available on Google Play and Apple Store.
It's not your regular show. It's an online interactive session where we share my views on the everyday issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. I am passionate about our country. I choose to support any conversation geared towards building a better Nigeria. Babajide Kolaji Otitoju. Join me every Saturday on TVC News YouTube channel as I discuss Nigeria and the world at large on the show Issues with Jide.
Housing is fundamental to the physical, mental, social well-being and quality of life. In Nigeria, a large proportion of people live in slums and unplanned settlement because of their inability to own a house or rent decent accommodation. On this program, I analyze the challenges affecting the housing sector with stakeholders to provide solutions.
I don't think that anybody can pretend that we're going to close the 70 million homes gap in 5 years.
Each episode gives an insight into the housing plight of Nigerians.
The gate man here needs a house as much as the millionaire who is driving past there needs a house.
How can the housing sector be made better? Would the dream of owning a house by an average Nigerian be achieved? What strategies are the government putting in place to provide affordable and decent housing for all? Let's bring you up to speed on the happenings in the housing sector. Keep it.
TVC Communications, Nigeria's leading independent broadcast company, has been officially designated as a great place to work. Over the past few years, we have transformed our workplace into one which is respectful, caring, rewarding, and provides great benefits to all our 500 employees. We thank our team for giving us the chance to show that partnership between employer and employee really works. TVC Communications, officially designated as a great place to work, and now the only broadcasting and media company not just in Nigeria but throughout continental Africa to be fully certified. TVC Communications, a great Nigerian company, a great Nigerian place to work.
You always stay in my mind. My D me gone. I cherish you with my life. Don't worry yourself, oh. Everything go day alright. And if anybody try you, you know it's gonna be on.
Show strong love